Hawkie, whose real name was William Cameron, was a well-known Glasgow character. He was born at Plean in Stirlingshire sometime between 1770 and 1780, but his exact date of birth is unknown. Aged 12, he became apprenticed to a Bannockburn tailor, but he soon realised he hated being cooped up, so left and became a door-to-door tailor, taking work whenever he could. However, he wasn't very good at his trade, so turned his hand to various professions, all of which he failed at. He told people that he first saw Glasgow around 1796 or 1797 and worked for a number of weeks as a journeyman with a tailor named McCluckie at the Cross. He then returned to settle there in 1818, the same year the city was hit by a typhus epidemic. Taking a walk on Glasgow Green one Sunday morning in the company of another journeyman tailor, they stood and listened to a preacher who was addressing a large audience. Hawkie said to his companion, "I could beat him myself." The next day it was discussed at work, and one of the men said to him, "So you think you could beat the preacher?" To which Hawkie replied, "Yes, I could." On the following Saturday night, it was arranged for him to preach the next day in public, but as he had no black clothes, he went to his master and asked him for a loan of his black suit, pretending that it was for attending a funeral. The next day, about 40 journeyman tailors attended at their trade house in Pipe Close, High Street, where Hawkie delivered a sermon. They arranged to go to Westmuir on the road leading to Airdrie, and accordingly, around 12 o'clock midday, they set out, some 40 or 50 strong, picking up recruits on the way. When they got to Westmuir, Hawkie had a large congregation. A man named Donald Bell, a journeyman to Mr. Lockhart the tailor above the King's Arms in the Trongate, was chosen as precentor. Hawkie's parents, whose sermons he had often read to his mother who took great delight in them, preached one of their sermons. He made a good impression on the congregation and later said, "No thanks to me, for Erskine has handled the subject well," referring to Ebenezer Erskine, the minister of Stirling. At the end, an elder was chosen to go round with a hat for the collection into which money fell thick and fast. Hawkie thanked them for their kindness. Then he and his companions went to count the money, which amounted to 13 shillings and some odd coppers. Hawkie later said, "That night we spent everything." Hawkie is known to have written a little chapbook called The Prophecies of Hawkie. This was how he got his nickname. He later recalled, "I called this book first in Glasgow, where every person knew the meaning of it, but when I went to Edinburgh and cried it, they did not know the meaning, and not knowing my name, they called me Hawkie after the book." Hawkie was fond of whisky and was quite happy to talk of his love of it. Food and clothing were a secondary consideration. A Highland lady benefactor once said to him, "It's a perfect vex to see you going about with a coat all broken out at every corner." "'Deed is it. I'm sure there's plenty of gentlemen's in our big town of Glasgow here that will give you a gooder coat." Hawkie replied, "Well, lady, it wouldn't be discreet if I didn't thank you for the hint, and I think there's scores in Glasgow who would give Hawkie a coat, and they have done it too. They're not to blame, but a coat that's worth a gill can't be a day on my back, and I'm not sure if I could succeed in my calling so well in a better coat." Hawkie once called at a shopkeeper's in the Trongate soliciting alms to pay his lodgings. He told the shopkeeper that his lodgings cost him more than the shopkeeper cost him. "How do you make that out?" asked the shopkeeper. "In the first place, it cost me 15 pence to make me decently drunk. Boards and banes make up the bed and contents, and unless I were drunk, I couldn't sleep a wink. The bed that I have to lie down on would make a dog yowl to look at it, and then the landlady must be paid, though a week's lodging money would buy all the boards and bowls that's in the house. I have indeed made but little this day. I was up at Cowcaddens, where they have little to themselves, and less disposition to spare anything. And wearied, I lay down at the roadside to rest me. All the laddies were saying as they passed, 'Hawkie's drunk,' and I'm sorry that wasn't true." On another occasion, a gentleman said to Hawkie, "I am surprised that a person of your knowledge and intellect can degrade himself by drinking whisky until you are depraved of reason. I would allow you 2 glasses per day if you cannot want it, but no more." He replied that it was a fair offer. "But will you lodge the money in a public house?" he asked. "Man, you don't know what I'm bound to do. My forefathers and foremothers too, for I suppose if you and me hadn't had both, we couldn't have been here. So as mine were all sober folk, I have now to drink for them all. You see, they ran in debt to the British government and left me to pay it, and as I couldn't do it, all at the slump, I get an easy settlement with the folks of the Exchequer by paying up in instalments. Whenever I see a house with reading above the door, or in the window, 'British spirits sold here,' I do my best to pay my dividend, and no doubt it finds its way to headquarters. God save the Queen and the rest of the royal family." Hawkie could turn his hand to any profession if he put his mind to it. He was most fond of gardeners, of whom he said, "There is no man that has more business upon the earth than my friend the gardener. He always chooses good ground for what he does. He commands time, he is master of mint, and fingers pennyroyal. He raises his salary every year, and it is a bad year indeed that he does not produce a plum." Throughout his life, Hawkie's life had been blighted by a leg injury he'd sustained when a youngster at a farm, but by the time he was in his 30s, he had to use a crutch to walk. This didn't stop him from wandering all over the country. In the 1840s, he was encouraged by publisher David Robertson to write his memoirs. He told of how street people had to live by their wits and how much they depended on the goodwill of the people to give them money. He also spoke of his time in and out of the town's hospital in Clyde Street and the poorhouse, although he did work on and off as a tailor. Mostly, though, he made money from the stories he told, commanding large audiences who would pay to listen to him, and would sell the chapbooks to them, retelling the stories in print. Hawkie died in 1851 at the town hospital in the city. If you enjoyed this episode of Scotland's History, please like, comment and subscribe. Until next time, thank you for watching.